Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Adam Draws Stuff. I'm Adam and I draw stuff, and today's video is going to be for anybody who's trying to do art on a budget. So as most of you probably already know, art supplies can be stupid expensive. So I thought it'd be fun to jump to the opposite side of the spectrum and search out the cheapest art supplies that I could possibly find, and what better place to do that than the Dollar Tree. Now, I am a firm believer that you really get what you pay for when it comes to art supplies. Typically, the more expensive they are, the better quality they tend to be. However, I have been duped in the past. If you've seen my review on Artesa's Everblend alcohol markers, which are a great alternative to Copic markers, by the way, then you know that every once in a while a product will come out that kind of bucks that trend. So today what I want to find out is whether or not the Dollar Tree has any decent art supplies on their shelves. Any decent quality art supplies that you can pick up for just $1. Now, in full disclosure, I don't have very high hopes, but you don't know until you know. So with that being said, let's make a run to the Dollar Tree and see what we can find. Okay kids, so we're back and we've got the goods. So, as expected, the Dollar Tree did not have a huge selection of art supplies, but I knew that going into it. It was mostly like really small packs of colored pencils and crayons and just a bunch of regular pencils, number 2 pencils. But that doesn't mean that we didn't find anything good at all. So here's our
Dollar Tree haul.
So of course the Dollar Tree had plenty of pens. So I did pick up these guys right here, these R2 roller pens. I think they are gel pens, is at least what it looks like. And they're 0.7 millimeters, so it's not the finest, but it should work in a pinch. Of course, 10 pack of colored pencils by Liquimark. I don't know that brand, but we're going to find out if they're any good or not. Oh, I also found by Jot this 20 pack of markers, and I think they're water soluble, so I'm sure they are. So they really shouldn't stain, and we could put these to use, we'll just have to see. Of course, some handy dandy mechanical pencils, also by Jot. And I had to pick up mechanical pencils because that is typically what I do all of my drawings with. So we'll see how theirs compare to my tried and true. And then of course we have Artist graphite pencils. I don't know what makes these Artist pencils. It doesn't say if they have different grades in the box. Let's pull one out and see. Oh, they do. So as you can see, or if you can see it, that's an H. What else do we have? 2B, HB, 2H, and a B. So actually a pretty good range for just $1. We'll have to see how they hold up. We also have a 6-pack of watercolor pencils. These should be interesting. We'll see if we can get anything good out of those. A 6-pack of charcoal pencils. And I'm wondering if these have varying hardnesses as well, or if they're all the same thing. Let's find out. Okay, so these are all the same hardness, and they're still unsharpened on both ends. So we'll have to test those out. Those might be good for getting deeper blacks than we can get with just the 2B from that other pack of pencils. We have some metallic pencils. These look pretty interesting too. So these are kind of neat. I don't know how well the color's going to show up on camera, but they are they're pretty pale. There's a violet, a red, a gold, blue, and green. So those could be fun and interesting too. Gotta have some handy dandy erasers, of course. These are just by Pentel. Typically I really like these polymer erasers, so we'll see how this one does. So the one thing that I was not able to find there was sketchbook paper. The closest that I could find was this doodle pad by Crayola. And this is not my typical paper. It's 25 sheets and it's really dark. I don't know if it's showing up, but it's borderline gray. And it's very thin, but it's made for small children just to doodle on really inexpensively. So this is the best that I could come up for paper that didn't have lines on it. And because it's darker colored paper, I thought I'd also pick up a corrector pen. So this is technically whiteout. So when you make a mistake on a white piece of paper, you can just color over it and then you can write over it again. But I thought this might be kind of good for bringing out some highlights since this paper is darker. That's something that I tend to do, is use a white pen or a white paint marker. But I wasn't able to find either of those at the Dollar Tree, so this is the closest that I was able to come. Now it's time to put these products to the test and see if we found anything that's worth using. So I'm going to be doing a quick drawing using as many of these art supplies as I can. I don't know that I'll be able to use all of them because it kind of wouldn't make sense to smash all of them together. But I'm going to use as many as I can and only the Dollar Tree art supplies. And I'll be back with my final verdict, and I'll let you know if any of these things are worth picking up in just a minute. Okay everybody, so here's my attempt at doing a full piece of art with just Dollar Tree art supplies. Now, I picked something that was going to be kind of easy. I did this little Mimikyu, and I wanted something that was going to be simple, not anything with a huge complex background or something that was going to require a lot of colors, because I knew going into it that I wasn't going to be able to pull it off. But this was kind of insightful. So I did struggle with this a little bit. I tried my hardest to use every single one of the art supplies that I came here with, but unfortunately I did not succeed. So what did I use to make this Mimikyu drawing? I used the watercolor colored pencils for the body, that yellow that you see there. I used the markers for the orange of his cheeks. I used the drawing pencils to do the initial sketch, and then I used the gel roller ball to do the outline. The black of his eyes, the tips of his ears, and then those little parts around the bottom of his body, those were done with the black marker, as well as his tail. And at first I tried using the regular colored pencils for the brown for his tail, but it was so desaturated that it just wasn't looking right. So I then had to go back over it with the brown marker. And as you can see, because there's colored pencil under it, it's really, really patchy and it just doesn't look very good. I would have done better to just start with the brown marker and leave it at that. So what I was not able to use were the charcoal pencils. I wasn't even able to get those sharpened. Every time I would try to sharpen it, they would just break and crumble, and it was completely unusable. So I would have liked to have seen how it would perform on this paper, or how it would work incorporated into this drawing, but I just wasn't able to get them sharpened. So those are going to be a hard pass. Oh, and I also, for the shading around his body, I used the metallic pencils. I used the gold metallic pencil that was the closest thing that I could get to a darker version of the yellow from his body. Even though they say they're metallic, they don't really read as metallic at all. They just look like a regular colored pencil. So if you think that you're going to get like a blinding Jeffree Star level highlight, you are going to be disappointed. And then once it was all done, the last thing that I did was I went around the edges and tried to add in a highlight using the corrector pen. And while it worked, I wouldn't recommend it. That was kind of tough. There was quite a learning curve. It took a little while to get used to. So it's actually pressure sensitive. So when you push down on the paper, it kind of flows out and goes everywhere. So that was really hard to control. And I actually messed up a little bit there, but I was able to correct it and kind of bring it back. I went over the outline there on the left. I pushed a little bit too hard and white came out everywhere. So, with all of that said, is there anything that I would recommend? Yes. So I thought that the pencils, the drawing pencils, I thought those were actually pretty good. I used those again for the outline, the initial sketch, and then I did some shading around the bottom here with the 2B pencil. So they're not great, the range isn't very great, so you can't get super light lights and super dark darks. So the range is very limited to just kind of the middle tones, but they're better than nothing, and they're definitely better than a number 2 pencil. I also thought that the erasers were great too. I don't typically use these little pencil cap type erasers, but it worked really well. It didn't tear up the paper, and it just did a really great job at being an eraser. The colored pencils, they really didn't work at all. I tried several different colors, and every single one of them was really desaturated. They barely showed up on the paper at all. So those are going to be a no, but the watercolor pencils do seem to have more pigment, so I was actually able to work with those quite a bit better than the regular colored pencils. So in a pinch, if you need some colors, the watercolored pencils might be the way to go. And as far as the Crayola paper goes, this is bad. Like, steer clear. You do not want this, even for $1. It's super thin, and every time you go over it any more than once with anything, it starts to get a little bit tore up and unworkable. So really don't recommend it at all. It's also really dark, which I don't typically like darker tone papers. The price actually isn't good. So there's 25 sheets of paper for $1, which when you look at it at first glance, it seems like a good deal, but you can get a whole ream of copy paper, a printer paper, which is 150 sheets for just a few dollars. And I would definitely use that over this stuff any day. Also, the gel rollerball was pretty great. It's kind of hard to mess up a pen, but this did a perfectly good job as a liner pen. It's a little thicker than I would typically use, but it worked nonetheless. So that's my take on art supplies from the Dollar Tree. So in reality, I can't recommend any of them. And it's not because I'm being pretentious or thinking that none of these are worth using, but they're just really bad. Basically everything except for the pencils and the pens were really poor quality. They're not even worth $1. And I think that a lot of times we kind of look at that price tag and we think $1. Well, if anything is priced at $1, it's worth buying, right? But I would probably steer clear of these even for just $1. Unless you're in a really, really, really tight pinch and you really need something and your budget is super slim. But otherwise, Dollar Tree art supplies are a no-go from me. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. It was a little bit informative. If you did like it, be sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know, and if you haven't already, you should subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.